This is the Goode Show. My name's Surinder and I'm a military spouse. I've been a military spouse for over 26 years and my guy served 30 years as a Navy SEAL and retired as a Command Master Chief. Now, I've heard a few stories and I've told a few stories and now I am sharing stories. Sit back, relax, grab a beer, grab a coffee and enjoy. Check us out on social media at The Goode Show. Welcome to this week's episode. My name is Surinder. I'm your host, and this is The Goode Show. Now, I've got a resume that's so intimidating for my next guest, Nicole Gebhardt. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
Listen, let me just let everybody know, okay, you are a speaker, you're a life coach, you are also a pregnancy and infant loss awareness advocate. You were also recently voted Armed Forces Insurance Spouse of the Year, District of Columbia for National Guard. Yes. On top of that, I mean, your husband's an aviator and you're the mother of 6 kids. That's insane to me.
Yes, we have 6, but we are done. We are officially done.
Wow. I mean, I just, I just can't even begin to manage to figure out how you balance everything, Let's go back. Let's get a little bit of basic background on you. Now, how long have you been a military spouse?
We have been married coming up on 12 years this December.
Okay. Now, is this your first marriage?
This is not my first marriage. So my first marriage ended in a very painful divorce after years of abuse. I ended up leaving him when I had a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. I was 7 months pregnant. I actually walked into the bathroom one evening while he was doing a line of cocaine on the bathroom counter while abusing our 2-year-old in the tub, grabbed her out of the tub, grabbed my 1-year-old out of his crib, grabbed my very pregnant belly. We ran for our lives. I had no clue how I was going to keep food on the table, a roof over our heads. We were living on food stamps, but I was bound and determined to do it. And after that divorce, I said, I will not marry anyone again, especially no one in the military. My husband's been in for 28 years now.
Okay.
No one that has any other children. He's got 3 children. And I didn't think it was something I could do. But my husband now and we went on our very first date on New Year's Eve and we fell madly in love with ourselves. And now we're about to celebrate 12 years of marriage.
Wow. I mean, that introduction there, that's just mind blowing in itself. Let me ask you, were you married to a military guy before?
It was not military before.
Not military. Okay. I just, you read books, you hear articles. I'm talking with you and I hear the words that are coming out of your mouth, 2 children, 1 on the way, 7 months pregnant, and you choose to leave. That is this. I mean, I'd be scared shitless, quite frankly, but obviously as a mom, what was it that took you to that point where you thought, okay, no more?
I had truly reached my point. I was molested by a family member as a young child. I'd experienced rape in college my freshman year at Florida State University. And then my ex-husband and I, we had a 9-week-old son, which we lost together on top of multiple miscarriages. And I ran to God after I lost my son, but he ran to drugs. And that's when he became so abusive. And when I walked in and saw him doing this to our daughter, it's like, you can F with me all day long, but you will not touch a child of ours. And I was determined to break that cycle. I didn't want my children raised in a home like I was raised in. I wanted something different for them. And now my husband who is in the Air Force, has legally adopted my children. You cannot tell which children are his, which are biologically, which children are mine. But I continue to share my story because I want women to know that you are worthy of this kind of love. You are worthy to be treated like a queen. You can overcome your past.
Now, I look at you just now and, listening to your voice, the determination, the strength, the courage. I firmly believe that we've all been through some kind of trauma. I don't think you can measure trauma. Let me put it like that. It affects everybody differently. But we've all been to a place, myself included, where you just feel as though I'm in that really deep, dark place and I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. When you were in that deep, dark place, where did you pull your strength from? Now, obviously, you're a mom, so that's unwritten and that's unspoken. And I'm not saying that that's not enough, but you need a lot of strength, girl.
Honestly, I hit my rock bottom. It was October 15th, 2019, which is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day. I had
Okay.
decided I did not want to live any longer with my three children who had died. And so I got completely inebriated. I ended up falling down two flights of stairs. My husband now, he found me at the bottom. He said I was barely breathing, barely responding. He called 911. When the first responders got me to the hospital, the doctors in the ER said I wasn't going to survive. I had a brain bleed, brain contusion, five times the legal limit of alcohol. Well,
Wow.
after a week in the ICU, and I woke up and I realized I quickly had two choices. I
Uh-huh.
could literally lay down and die, or I could get up, heal from my past, turn my own pain into purpose, and then help millions of other women do the same. And I chose the second. I had hit my rock bottom. And when I woke up, I knew that my son in heaven did not want me to be so
Yeah.
depressed and so anxious. He wanted me to live this full life. And I feel super blessed that I
Hmm.
have turned that pain into purpose and now get to help millions of other women do the same.
Now, is this, I had read a story about, I don't know whether it was this particular incident or whether there were several of these incidents, but what I read was you had pills with you at a particular point and you had made that conscious decision that, okay, today's the day where where I'm doing what I'm doing.
That one was the one. Yes, this was several episodes.
Okay.
The first time was, so I said my first son died when he was 9 weeks old. It was my first day back from maternity leave. I walked into his nursery. I found my son lifeless in his crib. He was cold to the touch. I placed Samuel on the floor, started giving him CPR in hopes I could bring him back to life. But my
Yeah.
mama in the heart knew he was already gone. The first responders arrived to my home. I was treated like a criminal, shoved into a
Oh
bedroom.
my
I had to give a
God.
statement to the police. I was not even allowed to tell my son goodbye. And that's when my life completely changed.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I'm not going to be okay if I don't get help.
Hmm. That is, with all the childhood traumas, most people say with trauma, you put it away, you pack it away, and you just kind of suppress it and you just move on forward. It's a very old school way of kind of dealing with your mental health. Talk about how you have come through your childhood traumas and even got to a place where you felt that, okay, I can parent here. I can do this.
When I got out of the hospital after trying to commit suicide and surviving that, I had to be in the bed for 6 weeks. And it's when I quickly realized I can't do this alone. I need help. And for the first time in my life, I began asking for help. And, as a military spouse, we are taught to just suck it up. And our family moves every couple of years and we completely
Yep.
start over with new friends, new neighbors,
Yep.
new schools, new people. And so you just do it. You just have to be strong. And
Mm-hmm.
there was this moment in my life where I finally said, I'm not okay. I can't do this alone. And the most beautiful thing happened when I started reaching out to friends, family, other military spouses. They
Yep.
quickly wanted to help. We ended up having food at our front door and they were helping watching the children. And I realized I needed to get help. So I hired a therapist. And I think it is so frowned upon in our society that you got to do it alone and you got to
Yeah.
do this and you got
Yeah.
to. That's not true. We're not meant to do this life alone. There is too many others out there. We are meant to do this as a community
Yes.
and lean on each other so we don't feel alone.
Do you remember that first phone call that you made where you decided, okay, you know something, I need help? Do you remember who you made it to?
I called my mom and I said, when we did not have a good relationship at that time, I still resented her a lot for not protecting me from the
Uh-huh.
family member that had molested me. But I called her on the phone. I said, I need you to move in with us. My husband was stationed at the Pentagon. He was always gone for work. And I needed someone that could help me get the kids out of the bed each
Yeah.
day, that could get them off to school, that could honestly feed me. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't smell. There were all these different things happening. And I'll never forget that phone call asking my mom and saying, I need you to forgive me. I forgive you. We need to have these tough
Wow.
conversations, but I need you to come up to Washington, D.C. and please help. And my life completely changed. Our relationship changed. That
Yeah.
was the moment where I finally felt, oh my gosh, I can do this.
To your point, what you said earlier on, different situation, but I was also in a place where I was here, I was alone, didn't ask anybody for help, and the minute I did, it was like the floodgates had opened, and so many people out there either have experienced something similar, or they just genuinely want to help. I think it's a fair statement to say that with military spouses, because we have the lifestyle that we do, it's an unwritten, unspoken kind of rule, I guess, to watch out for each other, to bring, into the fold. I think the COVID changed that a little bit, with people not socializing so much. But that I've always found that that's, you ask a military spouse for help and you've got 20 of them.
That was my next phone call was to a fellow military spouse. She completely set up a meal train. She
Oh,
set up a
wow.
babysitting schedule with my children. It was incredible. And that was the moment that I said, I can do this. I can live this life. And that is also another reason every time we move, every time we PCS, I start a coffee group to get the women together, as
Nice.
well as a pregnancy and infant loss support group, because there aren't many of those out there. And I want all women, but especially military spouses, I hold a special place in my heart for that, for us to come together. And I have to say, every time we move, those spouses are my community. Those are my
Yep. Yep.
lifelines. And it's just an amazing feeling to know no matter where we go, where
Yep.
we have to start over, what new life we have to live, they're going to be there.
Yes, I always say to people, as challenging as it is sometimes without your partner, I have got friends in almost every state. I will never have to book a hotel again. I just go and gate crash with people.
Well, we just found out we have orders to move to Alaska from Washington,
Wow.
D.C. My husband, this is the second time he's been scheduled at the Pentagon. And I
Yeah.
remember at first I was like, there's no way I could do this. But when I started doing my investigation and asking all these different spouse friends I have, they said, Alaska, it'll change your life. It's a
Yeah.
once in a lifetime
Yeah.
opportunity. But the biggest thing there is the military spouses have each other's back. And I was like, I'm sold.
Yeah.
Let's go. I can
Totally.
do this.
Totally. Let's talk about your husband briefly. Obviously, through the time frame that you were at your lowest, he's also active duty.
Correct.
So he's trying to balance work, his home life. Um, that must have really stressed you both out
That's
as
when
well.
things got really rough. When we moved to Savannah, I'll never forget. He had his first deployment when we were together. It was his sixth deployment, but with me, it was my first with him.
Hmm.
And we've got these six children, and I had no idea how I was going to survive. We're also we're a guard family, so and when we lived in Savannah, everybody was a bit spread out, a little bit different than it is here in Washington,
Hmm.
D.C.
Hmm.
And I remember feeling so alone and so isolated and thinking, how am I even going to get through this? And that's when the drinking began. It was under control in the beginning. And I remember he came back and we started getting therapy because when you come back from a deployment,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother ball game as
Oh,
well. And
yeah.
I remember telling him, I feel depressed. I feel anxious. I feel alone. We had to go to marriage counseling. There was a point, though, after we moved to DC after that one, that we were on the verge of divorce. I was waking up, starting to drink, drinking till I went to bed. I couldn't function. I did not want to get out of bed. And the only thing that was keeping me going was alcohol because I was so depressed. And then
Hmm.
I just felt guilty. You go through this cycle of
Yeah.
emotions. I feel guilty. But I couldn't put the bottle down because I was so unhappy. And it
Hmm.
was when we hit that rock bottom and my life changed that our marriage changed. We have never been stronger. Our communication is open. But the biggest thing as a military spouse I've learned is you have to communicate. If
Oh,
he's going to
yeah.
be gone all the time, he has to know this is what's going on. This is what I need help with. This is what I need from you.
Yeah, I remember asking my husband when he was a command master chief. I said, "What do you tell your guys, when you guys are heading home from deployment?" He said, "I simply say to them, ask your spouse, where can I fit in,
Mhm.
and how do you want me to fit in?"
You've started this completely
Yeah,
different life
yeah,
without them. Another
yeah,
big thing I'd like to share with other spouses, go on a trip. As soon as they're back within the next week or so, do just a weekend away. Just the
yeah.
two of you so you can completely reconnect with each other. It's so, so important that you're putting your marriage first so then the children can thrive off of that as well.
That's a really, really good point. I sat on a panel recently, and I remember I said to people, I said, "Look, remember why you said I do."
Mhm.
Go back. Let's get real basic with stuff. Let's go back to why did you say I do? I said, now I don't know anybody that said I do because of the TRICARE. I said, so, you
Oh,
know, so Again, just going back to basics, and communication was one of the things that I had said to them. I said, sometimes communication isn't nice. Sometimes we say things that maybe the other person feels it's a bit of a ding. And obviously they're going to feel that way because it's your partner and vice versa. But communication, as long as it's level headed and there's
Correct.
no raised voices, it has to happen.
I would say my husband is my biggest supporter, but my hardest critic because
Yes.
he wants me to do better. He
Yes.
sees things in me sometimes I don't see. And we're brutally honest. I'm telling
Hmm.
you brutally. And it's sometimes you walk away like, eeh, that
Oh,
stung. But
here you go.
then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that because look at us now. Look what you can do together. So I think honesty is imperative. And that's why a lot of marriages survive when you are honest with each other and you can communicate on that level.
I think the other thing when it comes to marriage is there is some preconceived idea of what marriage should be, how couples should interact within that marriage, and b, especially when it's a military relationship. And I spoke to a lot of guys that said, hey, the hardest thing about deployments actually is going home.
Mhm.
And as a military spouse, I was a little bit like, well, what the fuck, dude? You know, uh, you know.
I will say one another huge thing we've implemented because we do go through a lot of deployments together is we've started doing when he is in the country, we do date nights every Friday night. And it doesn't have to be this massive go spend all this
Hmm.
money. We make a cheese plate together, no
Hmm.
kids are allowed in the living room, or we watch a movie together, or we
Hmm.
go on a walk together. It's
Hmm.
imperative to have that time for each other and be
Yeah.
checking in consistently.
Yeah, I think like most things, marriages sometimes become habitual. I guess it's a habit.
Mhm.
And I always say to people that, the nice thing for me when he comes back from deployment after, they've decompressed or whatever they're doing, it's almost like, wow, you see him again. And thankfully for me, I've always had butterflies in my stomach, but I've heard from spouses, they're like, Hey, but you know something,
At least they're
I
honest.
will, I will say this, and but I remember a girlfriend of mine, and every Thursday night we'd watch Real Housewife from any crap city, right? And we'd sit there, and she called me one Wednesday, and she went, girlfriend, she said, I'm not going to be able to make it over tomorrow. I went, why not? She went, he's coming back early.
Isn't that funny too? Because when my husband's home too long, I'm like, when are you leaving?
Yeah,
Like I'm totally
yeah,
used to this life now. You need to go for a little bit. But it's
yeah,
just so true. Another big thing is learning each other's love language. My
yes.
husband and I are both words of affirmation. So every morning we send each other a text telling them one thing we love about each other. So
Hmm.
learn what the is it time spent together? Is it
Hmm.
words of whatever it may be. That's a huge one thing that's worked for us really well as well.
Now I know that there's a book out there, a couple of books out there about marriage, and I didn't know anything about love languages. I mean, I grew up with 8 guys, so, my mindset's a little bit more male than it is female. And I remember somebody talking about love languages, and I realized what my husband's love language is, and I'm so glad he
Yeah.
has this because I'm British. I cannot step out of bed without a cup of tea. And
Oh.
every morning, that man, God bless his cotton socks, wakes up and makes me a cup of tea. And I get pissed if I don't get my tea in bed.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. My husband
I
did the
know.
coffee's mine, and he makes sure before he leaves for work at 4 a.m. in the morning, there's a cup of coffee by the bed.
I know. I'm
That's
like,
love. That's
yeah.
real love, my friend.
I think sometimes that we forget it is, and we do
Simple.
forget because we're human, that
Yeah.
those kind of
It's
actions
so
mean so
simple.
much more.
Yeah.
So kudos to your guy
Thank
for
you.
being just hanging in there, understanding, learning to understand, because obviously for guys, sometimes, we're just a completely different language. And as
Mhm.
I've gone through the transition to your point, like, hey, aren't you home a little too long, um, which is a whole different conversation. It is really respecting and understanding that each other may not want the same thing, but it doesn't mean they don't want you to get it. Or do you know what I mean? It's
So
just,
true.
it's a jigsaw puzzle. We're just, fitting into
Yeah.
place. And, you had you said it as I was reading about you, you started to reorganize your life because that's the point you got to. You started
Right.
to reorganize your life.
Completely.
Give us a couple of pointers. It's maybe three things that, three biggies for you where you were like, okay, um, that's got to be reorganized. That's got to be done. And these are my three, 5 meter targets here I've got to achieve.
One of the biggest things is gratitude. Start your day with gratitude. The way you start your day is how the rest of your day is going to go. So, the first thing I say when I get up each morning is I say, today's going to be the best damn day of my entire life. I set that intention out there. And you better believe every day is damn good.
Yeah.
Then I list three things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for a husband that loves me. I'm grateful for a roof over my head. I'm grateful for food to eat. And I continue that positive mindset throughout the day. Another thing is a big thing in my healing journey was journaling. It was writing down my thoughts. What had triggered me to drink? What was triggering me to eat? What was triggering me to not take care of myself? Journaling is absolutely huge. And I know I say it a lot, but also ask for help. It might be the most minute thing. You talked about how when you started sharing your story that, you realized all these other people had experienced that.
Yeah.
I started sharing my story on social media when I got sober 5.5 years ago. And the amount of women that reached out to me and said, I've experienced rape. I've experienced abuse. I've lost a child.
Yeah.
It was massive. And it was just a remembrance to me that, like, I have to keep sharing my story. One, because I want all women to know they're not alone. And two, I want women to know that you can literally walk through hell, rape,
Yeah. Yeah.
molestation, abuse, infant loss, miscarriage, addiction, and still come out on top and still live that life you've always dreamed of living. So try journaling, try meditating, start your day with gratitude, and ask for help. Don't do this life alone. It's already hard
No.
enough. Don't do that.
It's that pride thing, though, isn't it, that
Yeah.
Nicole, that tends to get in everybody's way. And the thing with the situations that you've just addressed here, there is, yes, these situations occur in the civilian world, in every world, unfortunately. I think when they occur in the military space, there are other things that come into play that, just make things a little bit harder. First of all, the entity itself. Um, you're dealing with this by yourself. There's some shame. I've spoken to spouses that are worried that if their partners go for some kind of treatment or help in, maybe in towards anger management, that it goes down on a medical record, then they don't get promoted. It becomes this kind of like vicious little
It does. And that is absolutely
circle.
true. When I started sharing my story and being so public about it, that was a conversation my husband and I had to, because he is still continuing to go through promotions. And we had to have that difficult conversation. And he knew how much this meant to me that he said, if it affected my career, then I'm done. I've already been in
Yeah.
for 28 years. I'll retire, because he knew it was so important. But I will say, I lost a lot of military spouse friends, a lot of them.
Wow.
When I started really sharing the details of my story, and that was devastating. I started getting judged. I was serving as on different boards, military boards. I was asked
Yeah.
to step down from a few things. Also, because
Wow.
I dyed my hair, I got all these tattoos. I was falling in love with myself. And
Yeah.
in the same breath, I was losing these things that I had put so much on a pedestal, and had to quickly realize, if that's the way I'm going to be treated, I'm going to continue to step into my own.
Yeah.
And here I am, Washington, D.C., Spouse of the Year. I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so important for women to continue on that. And they're going to get the naysayers, they're going to get the judgers,
Yep.
but keep doing you. That's when you feel the most empowered.
I think this is, because I think we've all, been in a situation at some point where you realize that you are really carrying excess baggage. And it's time to just let that excess baggage go, because
Oh,
it's, I, at this point in the game, at my age, I said this to somebody the other day, I am too old and too ugly to give a shit. You
it's
know,
so true. I remember I got to a point where I looked into the mirror and I said, I don't even like you, much less love you.
yeah,
And that's when I was
yeah,
like, this has to change.
yeah,
So I dyed the hair. I wear the glitter now. I got the tattoos. I'll wear the red dress. But I feel so good now because I do love
yeah.
myself. And I
And you're
stopped
you.
caring what everybody else thought.
Yeah, somebody made a comment to me recently about, I get up in the morning, I go to the gym, and I've made some posts from the gym, right?
Mhm.
And somebody made a comment to me the other day about, oh, man, Surinder, you're pretty brave posting first thing in the morning. I went, what? Well, I haven't got brushed my hair, scrubbed my ass, or put shit
Yeah.
on my face. I said, that's how I go to the gym, dude. I said,
Yeah.
that's how we look, really. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's so true. And imagine
Yeah,
like my story, like I'm sharing details of a rape and I'm sharing
yeah,
details of walking in and finding my son dead in his crib. Yes, I get that. I get all of that too. I get blocked. I get judged. I get messaged.
That blows
But
my mind.
well, it's the truth.
Yeah,
But the one thing, the reason why I keep doing it is because in the same breath I get one negative, I get 50
oh
positives.
yeah,
You changed my life. You helped
yeah,
me leave my abusive husband. You now made me feel like I could, be a strong military spouse. That's what makes it worth it to me. Because again, you will always have naysayers, whether you're a military spouse or not. But it's how
yeah,
you handle that and
that's it.
how it pushes you forward is what it's going to make of your life.
Now, Nicole, obviously, this cannot be just a one episode here, because we've got a lot of stories in there that, we want to bring out into the open. And we're very, very fortunate that somebody of your caliber, unfortunately, it's that old thing though, isn't it? Somebody has to go through it in order to become that strong, powerful, loud voice, because that's really what it takes. So first of all, I want to at this point, I want to point out to our listeners as well, you press the subscribe button, because we're going to have Nicole back on again, and there's stuff here that you really want to tune into, want to listen to, and it's subjects that don't people don't want to talk about: rape and molestation, and the shit that really happens behind closed doors sometimes. Let's ask about your children though, because I don't want to. 6 kids, girl, that's like half a football team.
It really is. 3 boys, 3 girls. And it's
Three
funny
boys.
because so I had three, my husband
Uh-huh.
had three, and we became the Brady Bunch. We don't have any biological together.
Uh-huh.
We did meet when I was pregnant with the last one, so he's had her from the beginning. But it's just been an incredible journey. He's adopted my 3 kids, like I shared, and we just live this big family life. And it's a shit show every damn day, but I
Hey,
wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change a damn thing of it.
let me just ask you, what are the ages of the kids?
From ages 11 to age, she's turning 21 tomorrow. So 11 to 21.
11 to
Yeah,
21. That's a big
it
age
is. So
group.
the four youngest are 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 21.
Oh
So we
my
had
gosh.
four in diapers at one time. And you can imagine how well
Oh,
that went. That was like, how am I ever going to get through this? You're gone all the time in the military. I
I
don't know what
know.
I'm going to do.
But isn't it crazy how we do actually somehow manage to get it through, you
It's
know?
incredible. I remember saying I will never be a military spouse because I'm not
Oh,
strong enough. That was my reasoning. But man, I have never felt so strong.
mm,
And as hard as this life is, I would stand by my husband every single day to serve our country together because we love what we're able to do. We love that people can also like see, okay, they can do it. We
yeah.
can too. Absolutely.
Let's let's cover the books. You've got a couple of books
I
here
do.
that you have written.
I
First
have,
of all,
go ahead.
um, let's talk about the books, and I want you to tell everybody where they can get them as well.
Yeah, so I have the Queen's Companion book. That is the first book I wrote, and is literally the 12 steps I've taken to get from where I am today to overcoming all of that trauma, no longer struggling with anxiety, depression, PTSD. The other two are for pregnancy and infant loss. People that have experienced that, The Healing Cocoon and Broken Wings, Broken Dreams. They are books you can pick up when you are ready to not feel alone, when you are ready to feel that peace in your heart, when you are ready to heal from such a tragic pain. And then my fourth book will be coming out later this year. It is my memoir, A Queen Saves Herself. You can find them all on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Books a Million.
And how can people get in touch with you? Give us your social media information.
Yes, NicoleBGebhardt.com, theworthyfemme.com, spirituallighthousehealing.com, and then you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Nicole B. Gebhardt.
Nicole, it has been great having you on the show today. There is so much more that we need to discuss, and we will discuss. Anytime that we have somebody come on that's been as vulnerable as yourself, it really just to our listeners out there, to our spouses out there, it really gives them some, okay, we aren't alone. I think you've given them a lot of motivation, words of wisdom, and girl, you are just kicking ass and taking names. I'm loving it. I love it.
Thank you. It's definitely been a journey, but I feel super grateful to have turned that pain into purpose and be here today. So thank you.
You've been listening to The Goode Show. My name's Serinda. I'm your host. We'll catch up again in 2 weeks. I am out. Thanks for tuning in to The Goode Show. I hope you have been inspired by today's conversation. If you loved what you heard, help us spread the word. follow me on Instagram at The Goode Show. As military spouses, we all have stories to share, experiences, resources, and support. I want to hear your story and highlight your business. Let's connect, DM me, or visit surindergoode.com to share your journey. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and keep doing good things.